This is the Pipkin and Turnbull Show. It is episode 31 this week. It is November 12th, or it is December 10th, 2020. Got my 12 mixed up. Anyways, we have a great show for you guys today. Got a lot of NFL playoffs are coming up. We got college is starting to go into conference championships, so a lot of championship time, a
hmm
lot of ending time. Even for fantasy, there's championships going on,
Yeah.
playoff wise, and all that. So, Jamie, what are we going to be talking about this week?
All right. So this week we're going to continue our breakdown of NFL divisions, and so we're going to take a look at the NFC South division, and then we're going to look at who's going to be the MVP this year. You know, a lot of people think it's a one man race. There's some people that still have about four guys in that. So we'll break that down and just kind of see who we feel is the MVP. And then we'll end it with the best and worst things we saw this week, and we'll preview some matchups for you guys. So, with that, the NFC South, man, um, the it's a strong division. I wouldn't say they're the best division. New Orleans is obviously, they've already clinched the playoff spot and they won one more game. They've clinched the division. Tampa Bay, I think they're still trying to figure themselves out. And Atlanta is definitely, they're probably the best of the 4 and 8s in the NFL. And then Carolina, they're just kind of, new head coach and everything. But uh, for me, man, this division, I love New Orleans. I love that they're on a 9 game win streak.
Yeah.
Without Drew Brees. This is just a solid team, and they've been solid the last couple years. And then just some things haven't went their way in the playoffs. But man, I think this is New Orleans is the team in the NFC for me. What they're doing with Taysom Hill right now. Is amazing, and I think there's no reason they shouldn't give him the nod when Drew Brees decides to hang it up. Um, but yeah, this is definitely New Orleans division. It's there's really nothing anybody can really do about that at this point. What are your thoughts on the NFC South?
Yeah. What's crazy is now, when we look at statistic wise, what's interesting is actually Tom Brady is the QB of this division, which I would have never thought. I mean, obviously with Drew Brees kind of going down, that probably would have gone to him. But Tampa
hmm
Bay is a huge question mark right now. They would have a playoff spot, and what's crazy about them is you can definitely see their skill and talent defensively. Now, unfortunately
hmm
for them, that's not an every week guarantee of how that Tampa Bay defense will
No.
perform. Same thing goes for that offense.
Mm.
I think, relying, we've seen games where they have just totally relied on Tom Brady, where they've got, and Ronald Jones, have a pretty decent running game. I don't know where Leonard
Mhm.
Fournette has been, so maybe Jacksonville getting
Yeah.
rid of him was, maybe that was the reason behind that move. But Tampa Bay has been very one of the most difficult teams to gauge this year for me, because at
Yeah.
times, we've talked about them leading the NFC, especially after their big win against Green Bay. And then right after
hmm
that, basically gets stomped in Tampa Bay against New Orleans. My biggest thing for them is they have got to start relying on that run game a little bit more and less on Brady.
Yeah.
Um, and I think honestly for Tampa, there's just been it feels like a team that seems they've been confused and hyped this entire year and still are
Yeah.
feeling like that going into the playoff time. Because New
hmm
Orleans knows who they are, what their identity is. Taysom Hill, doing a great job, Obviously, you know, um, not in the same way this offense would look if Drew Brees was running it, but he's able to do. He's so dimensional, Taysom Hill, that he's able to kind of keep them going. And like you said, on this incredible 9-game streak, and so um, I believe Drew is meant to be back for the playoffs. I think he. So it'll be interesting to see, how they incorporate Taysom and Drew, to see if once Drew comes back, do they keep running schemes around Taysom? And so, really, this
Yeah.
conversation at this point is New Orleans and Tampa Bay. But something you and I also alluded to when we do this is, well, where's Atlanta and Carolina at? And I think you
Yeah.
talked, and I'm going to let you give your time and thoughts on Atlanta, because I know you've got a lot to say. But what do you see Atlanta needing to do to get
Man,
over 4-8? A 4-8 start, or 4-8 record, not a start.
yeah. I mean, if you go back and look at their schedule, they're a couple mess ups from having more than 4 wins.
Yeah,
Like they're they're
yeah,
they're a couple, at least 3 wins that they would have.
yeah.
So you automatically flip that, because then you're more respectable. For me, it starts with the coaching. You got to get yourself a coach in there. Accountability. And dare I say it, man, cutting your losses with some of these players. Julio Jones, for instance, cutting your losses with him. He can't stay healthy. All right. So what good is having him if he's not on the field consistently on the field? Matt Ryan, all right, I think he still has a couple more years, so you can probably ride that for a little bit longer. But start preparing for your next quarterback, all right? Whether it be this draft, whether it be the next draft, start preparing. Todd Gurley, it was awesome. He's from Georgia. He played for the Bulldogs. It's awesome. He's back. Whatever. You got to get him out. He's put up respectable numbers. 626 yards, 9 touchdowns, 2 fumbles. That's not bad. But, if you're going to be in the same division with Tom Brady and Drew Brees, you need to be able to match them. And Atlanta right now cannot match them. There's no reason Taysom Hill should have more, better numbers than Matt Ryan right now. And, it's just, you got to start at the bottom, cut the dead weight. All right. And that means getting rid of Julio. If he is not in your future and you cannot trust him, ride Ridley. All right. That he's a good wide receiver. Put him in position to win. All right. You gotta start building that, because this is a good team, but they're underperforming.
It's kind of
And
like
I think a lot of it is that there's leaders that aren't there.
yeah, I think they're a little bit odder to me than even the Cowboy situation,
Yeah.
because and I do think they're very similar, just talent wise. Atlanta
Mhm.
and Cowboy, with the talent you have, their record doesn't reflect that. Um,
Yeah.
but my big thing is just what happened within that organization, like a Dan, because I you know, was a big fan of what Dan Quinn did when he went to Atlanta. He really came in, focused on the defense, from the Seattle days, focusing in on their defense, and then, keep building on that offense, adding Calvin Ridley, having Julio, and then, which led them to that, almost winning, and should have won that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So it's a strange year where, at the end of 2 years, from this year and last year, you look at the combined thing, how it's kind of gone downhill for Dan Quinn and his
Mm.
squad. Um, that had always been my big question, because I still think, I, would look for, Dan Quinn to go rehabilitate, maybe with another good head coach, like with an Andy Reid. And then I would be,
Yeah.
I would hire Dan Quinn, because I still think, I think he can still run, or and turnaround organizations. I just maybe there were just other pieces that went wrong with Atlanta. And I think what we
Yeah.
may see is Atlanta poaching another Arrowhead great, which would be Eric Bieniemy, uh,
Hmm.
being maybe the next Falcons head coach. You
Yeah.
know,
He should definitely be in the conversation. I think Bieniemy is going to Houston personally, but he Bieniemy needs to be in that conversation for them.
yeah.
Definitely.
So, with and then to just briefly talk about Carolina, they've got a lot more holes to fill. A
Yeah.
lot more, I mean, losing, McCaffrey, figuring out, Teddy Bridge, they just, Roby Anderson is a wide receiver you can build on there. They've got a
Yeah.
couple of pieces, but I think the question is Teddy Bridgewater your quarterback moving
Hmm.
forward? And
Yeah.
so that'll be kind of interesting to see what Carolina does there. So, but yeah, because what Carolina had was the veteran transition, right? So after they go to
Yeah.
the Super Bowl against in Super Bowl 50, having a chance to beat Denver, it's all about this
Hmm.
veteran leadership that has been slowly dwindling out of Carolina, and
Yeah.
so it'll be interesting for me to see, the replacements, because you don't have Keekly anymore, you don't have Davis
Hmm.
anymore, so you're having to like you know, see yourself in this NFC South division that's only going to get harder year after year, especially
Yeah.
with what Tampa Bay and New Orleans is doing. Um,
Hmm.
it'll be interesting to see if they can get some of that. I mean, at a time, Carolina had always been known for their defense, so can they get some of that identity back for them? But yeah, the NFC
Yeah.
South is a very interesting division because just looking at it, just NFL, looking at some of these playoffs spots, um, it's they're definitely the favorite. I think them and the Packers right now, and it'll be also interesting, to see if they'll be able to get Drew Brees or back or not. So that will play into that conversation as well. So
Yeah.
um, going into MVP talks are starting to come up more and more.
Hmm.
And what's interesting to me is I feel like, unlike other years, now early on, I would have definitely said Russell Wilson, just hands down Russell Wilson, very early in the
Yeah.
season. Now it's kind of getting to the point to where it's like a very level race because I personally haven't really seen a standout, definitely MVP type performance. Now, are there guys deserving of it? Yeah, but just the guys who we thought would be in there are kind of in there for me, like a Patrick Mahomes, um, Aaron Rodgers, you know, uh, after after getting a quarterback in the first round, the Packers did in Jordan Love, coming back for his revenge season is what everybody's calling it. His odds are
Hmm.
are good. But a little bit of a guy that's had the biggest, you know, step up in his performance for me, and definitely should be in this conversation. You're looking at the entire year, and I'd have to put Josh Allen for me. For me right now, I'm
Hmm.
thinking my top three would be Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and I still have Russell Wilson. He's fallen off the blimp a little bit, but I still feel like he's kind of reaching at that spot. So that's who
Yeah.
I kind of like, and I would say if it ended the day, I think I'd have to give another MVP to Patrick Mahomes. But I think for me, Josh
Hmm.
Allen, incredible way that he's stepped up from last year to this year. So I mean, those are my initial thoughts when I first look at it.
For me, obviously, man, Patrick Mahomes has my vote, but and I mean, he's put up a great year. He's got about 3,800 yards, um, 30, 29, I think, touchdowns, and then only 2 interceptions. And he's 11-1, you know. But for me, the MVP is, would this team be where they are without this player? And, you know, yeah, the Chiefs probably wouldn't be super defending champs right now without Patrick Mahomes. Like, that's just, how it is. But for me, man, I'm looking more at the details, and not enough people are talking about Derrick Henry and Cook.
Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, these are running backs, and like I think the last running back to win it was AP, way back when.
Yeah.
And so I think people need to be looking at Henry and Cook. These are guys like Cook has single-handedly put that Vikings team on his back multiple times this year.
Yeah.
And, won. And then you got Henry. I mean, that dude's a beast no matter who he plays against. Like he's just a wrecking ball. And I think both those guys need to be in it. They're both 1 and 2 in rushing this year. And Cook is only like 100, 200 yards behind him, and he's missed 2 games this year. And so I just don't think, like, obviously quarterback is going to win it, man. It's probably going to be Mahomes. An argument can be made for Rodgers, but I think running backs need to have more love, especially those two, because they're what is Tennessee without Henry?
Right.
What is the Vikings without Cook? And so I just feel like they need more love and respect than what the NFL has given them, because I just don't see those teams being where they are, possibly getting playoffs without both of those players. If Alex Smith wouldn't have left the Chiefs and we would have never got Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs are probably still going to win the division. Probably, if they're not, they're still probably going to make the playoffs. Like, they're a well-built team that has definitely helped Mahomes, and like Mahomes' ability has definitely taken them to higher heights than Alex can, but they would still probably be in the playoff talk. I can't say that if you take Henry or Cook off their teams.
Yeah.
I just can't say that. And so, and the same thing with Rodgers though. Like if they would have traded Rodgers and started Love, would the Packers be in the position they are? Probably not. Not yet, at least. I don't know what Love can do, but like Green Bay is like, they have Jones. They have good running backs. Green Bay has good running backs, and then they've got Adams. Outside of that, they really don't have anything weapons.
Yeah.
Green Bay is all about Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, based on
your
theory of voting, I think you'd also have to throw in another quarterback, and I think it's probably Big Ben. You look at where the Steelers were at last year. We just said if they just had a quarterback, and now they first time franchise history they went 10-0 with having Ben back. So I think based on those standards, like what you're talking about, above the statistics, you'd have to throw Big Ben in there as well.
Yeah, I would agree. Because we've talked about that. Big Ben's gotten hurt a couple times the last couple seasons, and we've talked about that. Like, man, like if Ben was playing, they win this game.
Right.
Like, I feel like we've said that so many times. Yeah, like the Steelers are another thing. Like, if Big Ben is not on that field, they probably don't win that game. If Big Ben is not on that field, they probably don't go 11-0. Like, that's just being truthful. So yeah, sure, Ben needs to be in that conversation as MVP. Unfortunately, the MVP award is a popularity contest.
Yeah.
It's who looks the best, who, best numbers, and it's not really about the most valuable player, because there's defensive players that should be in this conversation as well. There's wide receivers that should be in this conversation as well. But like, basically it's a quarterback award, and running backs kind of get some love. And
right.
And that needs to be fixed, honestly. But I definitely, like, Mahomes is probably going to win it. Just being honest. I would still keep Wilson in that conversation because I mean he's Russell Wilson and he's gonna between now and the playoffs he's gonna do something cool. Just being honest there. Henry, Cook, Ben, Josh Allen would be my list.
Yeah.
And I love Patrick Mahomes, obviously. I really want to see a running back take off with it. I really would love to see Henry get the award or Cook get the award because Cook he missed last season, didn't he?
Either that
I
or the
think he
year
got
before,
hurt last
but
season.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's definitely been for Cook. I think he's totally like even transformed like physically. You look at him now. I mean, compared to like what he
yeah,
looked like as a rookie, I'm like, oh my goodness, no wonder you can't. I
yeah.
can I can imagine trying to hook Cook or Henry. But
Mm,
especially Cook. I mean, you think about
yeah,
not if he would have not missed those 2 games. I think he'd be even more in the hunt right now for
yeah,
MVP. I'd say even more so probably over Henry. Um, you know,
yeah.
um, but yeah, and like I said, I never thought I'd be giving kudos to Josh Allen, but just
Mm-hmm.
that step that the Bills took and his personal growth, from almost winning that game against Houston, till now.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the Bills and they're one of the, to me, I think they're one of the scariest teams coming out of the AFC. I'm looking at this
yeah,
matchup for the Steelers and Bills, and this is the first time where I think they most likely may lose again to the Bills. And I think
yeah.
that's all a lot of credit, goes to, Josh Allen for that. But
Mm-hmm.
once again, the team that needs their player the most, and like kind of what you started, is the Patrick Mahomes factor. You know,
Yeah,
he's still Patrick Mahomes. At the end of the day, the Chiefs
yeah.
would one and they don't have a Super Bowl and they don't have 11-1 record right now. That's for sure. Because
No.
when we're watching a Chiefs game, is literally the game. It's not like I until it's 0-0 on that clock. It's not over. I mean, even when poorly played
Yeah.
against Denver, the whole game you're just sitting there. It's like Denver's not going to win. It's just like
No.
it's not going to happen. And
Yeah.
that's because of Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
There is no
Mm.
quarterback right now that even comes close to the level of Patrick Mahomes. No, nobody.
There's really not.
And so yeah, I think for me that and I know I think statistically Aaron Rodgers is even higher than Josh Allen, but for me, once again I just go back to the guy that I look at who's elevating his team to kind of that level is a Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Um, the
I think Josh Allen is definitely he needs a couple more weapons. I don't really like how he throws the ball. I feel like he kind of floats it and leaves his receivers out to dry. But from last year to this year, it's like he took 10 steps forward. He's because last year I didn't think he was going to be in the league for very long. I just
right,
didn't like
right,
how he was
how he was
playing,
trending.
and
I was the
then he
same
comes
boat.
out this
Yeah,
year, yeah, and then this year he's one of the hottest fantasy quarterbacks you can have. He's definitely in the MVP conversation. I think he needs more weapons though. I think Buffalo they need to build a solid offensive line in front of him and get him a weapon or two.
well, I mean,
And I think
the
that team in
Stephon
Buffalo is going
Diggs
to
has
take
been a
over
good
that
combination
division.
for him though this year.
Yeah.
I mean,
And Cole Beasley is definitely an unsung hero there. But just someone because I've always believed that you need to give a quarterback an offensive line, especially a young quarterback, first, but then give him a wide receiver and a running back he can grow with, like someone that they can age together and they can be just this
yeah,
force.
it's the
And he needs to get
it's
that.
always been the who are your three. besides your
Yeah.
quarterback. Who are your three
Yeah.
guys? It's sometimes it's two wide receivers and a tight end, a tight receiver, a running back, and a tight end. But who are your three? And I think that's what what I'd
Yeah.
kind of allude to as well. Because if you just look at the Chiefs, it's Hill and then Kelsey,
Mahomes, Kelsey.
and then your third steps up from different areas, but sometimes it's Hilaire, sometimes it's Watkins, you know.
Sometimes it's
Yeah, so I mean,
Hardman.
but for
Sometimes it's
me it's always
Pringle.
like who are your three? Who are your three weapons besides your
Yeah.
quarterback? And so yeah, and maybe that's what, the Bills, like you said, need to continue to elevate. Um
Yeah.
so that's kind of MVP talk. So
Mm.
what are the best and worst things that we have seen? And this could be, the times,
Oh.
that the couple weeks that we've missed on the podcast, couple weeks that we missed in there, but then also including. So I mean, I've got to say, I'll start off with my worst because it's in my most recent memory, and that's happening Monday for the Steelers, going against Washington, and it was one of those games where they let it was one of those games where they let an opponent hang around because especially
Yep.
in the first half, Pittsburgh was clearly the better team, and I would say clearly the better team overall. But you let them hang around
Hmm.
until you make a mistake, and the interception being the biggest mistake, allowing Washington to win
Hmm.
that game. Um, we've that's been my biggest, and I think a football fan's experience of the Steelers team is this schedule has been incredibly weak. And
Yeah.
now you've got to go up against this Bills game is the biggest game besides the Ravens that the Steelers will have this year. And that's because
It's gonna determine if they get the buy or
well
not.
that
Like
not
straight
only
up.
that, but it also determine in my mind where they're at, where they're actually at. Because I can't
Yeah.
look at any of these teams that they had played before that to really be like, oh, they beat so and so, so clearly they're the best team in football. They had no matchup like that. They just didn't.
Yeah.
Until till this game. And so if the Steelers are able to manage to beat the Bills, I feel a lot better about their chances because you look at,
Mhm.
one of the things that they, you don't have Pouncey on the line, and I'd have to look up to see, his injury report, see if his status is for the play. So that, not having your longtime center there was a big part. I saw that offensive line kind of shut down near that second half.
Yeah.
They, you know, but you and I talked about Washington just being a couple pieces, and then they showed it. I mean, they showed that their front
Hmm.
seven is a stellar front seven. That's what I
Yes.
will give Washington credit for is they are going with Ron Riviera with that front seven. They got pieces,
Yeah.
and you know, as much I would the as much as it's horrible to lose, but it was great losing to just seeing the amazing performance that Alex Smith has been actually able to come back because nobody would have
Yeah.
thought that Alex Smith could. Anyway, so if you had to lose, like I'm glad it was like to him and his team, like he was starting. I would have been a little bit more upset if it would have been to Haskins or somebody, but
Yeah.
losing to Alex Smith, I feel pretty good about. Um, but still, Steelers overall, there's something that's missing about them, and then these next couple of weeks for this team are the most crucial weeks, and this is probably the biggest game of the year to show where where is this Steelers team at. So, but I had to say I got one of the worst thing I saw just because the they had that game and they allowed another opponent to dictate terms in the second half when you were clearly more talented, clearly had you know uh, everything in the midst for winning, except they just allowed Washington to hang around. So my worst was the Steelers this week.
My worst is that team in East Rutherford, New Jersey, called the Jets. Um, I can't stand this team. I can't because they had the Raiders dead to rights, dead. And then you blitz the final game, the final play. You blitz. And they fired Greg Williams, their defense coordinator, like the day after. See, all right. We know that whole coaching staff is going to be out of there on Black Monday. As soon as their season's over, it's going to be Adam Gase has been fired, and he's taking all his people with him. We knew that was a scapegoat, and I believe that they are tanking to get Lawrence. Does every team that's in a situation like that do this? Yeah, but this further proves why the NFL needs a draft lottery. They need, because I do not feel that this team should be rewarded the best player in next year's draft for losing all their games. Now, part of my hate is because if they would have just sealed the deal, the Chiefs would be the division champs right now. We already clinched the playoffs, but that's still just 5 in a row, pretty great. But I can't stand losing. We played football together since 8th grade. We lost a lot of games. I hate it. And it feels like that this team is just losing. Just because it's just a good idea. And I can't stand it. Because when I watch a football game, I want it to be competitive the whole way through. And I felt I was sitting there watching the Jets just be like, all right, well, we've got this game won, so let's blitz. Let's let Derek Carr just toss a lob to Henry Ruggs. Nothing there. That's fine. That's cool. We're still getting Trevor Lawrence. I can't stand it.
No,
I can't stand
this
it.
is no, I think we've been I think I went on a tirade probably earlier this season about this,
Yes.
because this is like the whole organization for the Jets. It's not just it's like why do we reward them with Trevor Lawrence? And why does poor Trevor Lawrence have to go to this dumpster fire? Like that's the Jets.
He's going from one of the winningest college programs right now to probably the sorriest franchise in the NFL. Like they were sorry last year. They're going to be sorry next year. If I'm Trevor Lawrence, I'm saying no. I'm staying for my senior season and pray to God there's a better team at number 1 next year because I'm going to be back.
Well, here's my
I ain't going to New York.
Well, here's the thing: is obviously the Jets need somebody, but you got to do it like I feel like Miami did it. If I give credit to Miami last year because we had that same tanking for two or tanking for somebody. It was that mindset. But what I saw from Miami nearing the end of that year was Flores was still coaching that team, like the organization as itself. You could see them trying to turn this thing around. But I understand dumping assets, but I don't understand having bad organizational decisions. And the Jets, they're dumping assets, but I don't see them, moving forward. But that being said, I credit Miami for what they did. They organizationally were trying to change, trying to do it the right way. But still, it still goes back to: do I believe Miami should have been given a third pick? No, the Jets do not deserve the first pick in this upcoming draft.
No.
So credit to the NBA of figuring out a lottery system. Now, should poorer performing teams have higher chances and all that? Yeah, I mean, but I'm just so against the Jets because it's more than it's just this whole thing with the organization. I don't understand. Like it's almost like you have such an amazing fan base, and I feel like you just make mockeries of this, of your organization, and then for your fans
Yeah.
in New York, you know, like how can there be so many Jets fans? You have you have Joe Namath, you had a savior from Alabama, Roll Tide, 50 years ago, get you a Super Bowl, and then so I mean, I credit Jets fans because you gotta put up with a lot. I mean, and
They're
it's
kind of lumped
it's
in there with Browns fans as just
man,
being
it's
crazy
well,
loyal.
yeah. I
Like,
mean, I the thing with the Browns was for me was, um, organizationally, I could always kind of see the moves that they're making, but Jets, I mean, it just felt like one bad disaster after another. As soon as Parcells
yeah,
leaves, it's just been like that. And
yeah.
hiring Adam Gase, one, but at the same time, I don't know who their options were. So this, goes back to, um, maybe you, yeah,
Anybody
I
but
mean, maybe
him.
you once Dan Quinn's fired, so maybe, like I said, I still think
Bring in
I think
Quinn.
I think Dan Quinn is still a good coach, and maybe with another opportunity, rebuild an organization. I mean, a lot of coaches have to go. Great coaches have to go through that. The best
Yeah,
example of that is Andy Reid. You know,
yep.
how just transitioning to it.
Philly quit on him, and he came to Kansas City in 2013, and we just haven't looked
Yeah. So
back.
I mean,
Same gravy.
but yeah, they need a lottery, or that's
Yeah, the NFL needs to
they have
figure this
got to
out.
fix. I think it's exciting. I think but yeah, I it's just the like I said, I think the worst team needs help, but I don't think it should if you don't win a game should grant you the best pick. That's
Yeah,
my frustration with it. Now, if you go through a system where
yeah,
you take the top 5 teams where they all have a chance at that pick, I'm okay with it. Because at least then
yeah,
you're not guaranteed anything. You're not guaranteed number 1. You may be guaranteed
yeah.
top 10, which I'm more okay with than just being like Trevor Lawrence is more than just. That's the thing with Trevor Lawrence. There's some players that come out of college that you're just like, if they're not going to be great, then we don't know anything about football. And Trevor Lawrence
Yeah,
is one of those guys. Andrew Luck was one of those guys. But what I hate to
yeah.
see with the same thing with the Andrew Luck situation was the Colts were in a disarray when Andrew Luck got there. And I think,
He got the
oh, he
crap kicked
did.
out of him every
Yeah.
Sunday. Look, and I mean, look at Burrow right now. The dude got his leg snapped in half, and all right, he's like, can't get rid of me that easy. He's like, all right, I'll be back next year. Can you imagine putting him on a better team that, you know, not the Cincinnati
Yeah, no,
Bengals?
I mean, especially
It,
Burrow, man.
it's just,
He was
ah,
incredible with the stuff that he was given at Cincinnati. Like, kudos to him. I never
yeah.
thought he was that good, but he's really shown like he's he's is going to be a good NFL quarterback. They just got to build stuff around him.
Trevor Lawrence, I'm going to say this right now. He's going to be a Jet. Trevor Lawrence will not, and I hate saying it, he will not finish the season next year. He's going to get hurt. And so we're not going to be able to see his true greatness because he's going to be great if the Jets will build around him and do it right. We will not see his true greatness until year 3
But
or
I
year
mean,
4.
now
We'll
since
see
we're
flashes, but
talking about
he's
now
going to get
since we're
hurt.
in the middle of a dumpster fire, let's extend this thought process though. Like, if you're the Jets, you have legitimately, you could say you could wait another year because you got Sam Darnold there. You wait a whole nother
Yeah.
year, have a whole nother year of losing, and then you pick up, like, maybe that's the direction you go. And maybe if I'm sitting there as a New York Jet fan and as an organization, I may think about that. I dump for Trevor Lawrence, get him this year. Say, hey, we're doing like any other. We're trying to do what Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs did. We just gave him a year just to sit on the bench. They do that with Sam
That would be
Sam
smart.
Darnold, and then you go into next year and be like, oh, number one pick again. We never thought that would happen. And then you get, another top tier offensive player for Trevor Lawrence at this point,
Yeah.
So I mean, um, so yeah, yeah, that's a lot about the Jets. But moving forward,
Yeah.
I I don't I don't know if how many times I've done Alabama for the best. I don't think I've done Alabama. I've been trying to hold in my fandom for Alabama this entire year, but
Let it fly.
but I gotta let it fly because beating LSU the way that they beat them was so beautiful. It was so great. Um,
You
because
kicked a
you
wounded
you
tiger.
you also knew it was gonna happen. Like I mean,
Yeah.
that was the feeling was, man. But all the stuff that Ed Orgeron said at Alabama and everything that he did, that the LSU team did last year, um, man, they should have put up even more points. That's my only negative against Alabama was they just should have let the starters stay in. Don't care.
Yeah.
I want
Put 100 on them.
largest whatever. Get get Jones as a Heisman in one game, with those stats, just let it
Yeah.
go, man. But man, after all that LSU said last year, man, it was awesome to see 55-17. It was so
Yeah.
great. And because you talked the talk when you barely beat, it was 46-41, and you said that they were going to own Alabama and everything that they did in recruiting and the way they play, and that you would, Alabama would never win, that you would own the SEC West. And then you have this season. It is poetic justice to its fullest. And I'll have to say this
Yeah.
Alabama, you can talk about one championship, but Alabama's all about dynasties. That's what we're all
Yeah.
about. We're all about the dynasty building, and you still can't touch Bama on that. Sure, you got 1 year, but we got our dynasty. Hey, I'll take a dynasty anytime, man. Take a dynasty
Yeah.
anytime, Ed. I gotta love Ed though. He's the funniest guy to listen to. I love hearing his press conference. Like even when he was like yelling at us, he's just the funniest college football coach ever. So God bless him. But
Yeah.
roll tide, and we'll see you next year. And hopefully we can give the same kind of beat down in Tuscaloosa. But that's the funny thing is, LSU. This weird thing with LSU Alabama is actually LSU usually when they've beaten us, it's been in Tuscaloosa. And the times Alabama's won, it's always been in Baton Rouge.
In
So
Death Valley.
yeah, so I mean, who knows? Like maybe I want, but I want them to do it at Tuscaloosa. I want to do 70-0 next year against them, man. But but yeah, you can't come into Alabama and just be yelling, and then you put it on social media. You go in the middle of the 50-yard line at Alabama and do all that you did, and basically Saban in his press lot basically he said I gave them the green light to score as much as they want. Like he said that. I've never heard Nick Saban do that. Like Nick Saban's always been like, we have to be careful against Appalachian State, or like, we're facing the top team in Florida Atlantic this week, have some great, that's how Nick Saban usually is. This way he's like, nah, green light them. Send them the full force of roll tideness.
Yeah. Football's personal like that, man. It's personal. Like people
Why do you
like,
give
there
them
was
that fire though? Why would you do
Yeah.
but then also as an LSU player, why would you because I know in locker rooms, even Nick Saban has said that like we'll probably, own and recruit, like all coaches are gonna say that, but the player here, no.
Yeah.
Anyways, but the
Don't
coach,
give a team like Alabama bulletin board material.
the thing is, the
Like,
difference was Ed took his team to the 50-yard, like the coach took his team to the 50-yard.
yeah.
I think the locker room speech is one thing, because I think every coach does that. Okay, I'll give him grace there, but Ed, you asked for it when you went to the 50-yard line after the fact. You didn't do this before the game.
Yeah.
You did this after barely beating Alabama. and
Yeah.
injured Tua. By the way, at that point he was still injured. That was before Mississippi, but he was still injured because he got anyways. Still, besides the point. You barely beat Alabama, and we're talking that kind of stuff. And then now your
Yeah.
defense with Bo Pelini, I mean, is the most atrocious thing I've ever seen come out of LSU and Baton Rouge. Like that, you go from winning a championship to this. So I know I've said my worst thing. I probably used LSU as my worst thing 3 times this year. Was gonna do it again,
Ah,
but I had to be fair and talk about the Steelers. But anyways, what was the best thing you saw? That was my tirade.
man. So before I get to my best thing, I need to tell you, I've decided I'm gonna eat my crow, and I think that your
Mac Jones.
quarterback down there is
Mac Jones.
definitely gonna probably walk away with the
He's up there.
Heisman.
I
That
told you.
dude, consistency,
Week
man,
Either week
consistency.
1 or week 2 before
I,
anybody. I
I,
said it.
yeah, but I just wanted to eat my crow right now. I didn't like him, but anyways, he's good. He's good. So my like, and I know this was your dislike, but my like is Alex Smith. I Everything that he's doing since he's come back. This dude had 17 surgeries on his leg, nearly lost his leg. In the game, he got cleated
Yeah.
and was like blood all over his sock and all over his shoe. Like this guy should not be playing. There's no reason he should be playing because he's made his money. He's playing because he loves the game. And you see that when he's out there, he's not going to be the most flashy quarterback. He put up like 286 yards, 1 touchdown, and like no interceptions against the Steelers. And he's not the flashiest. He's not going to take those long shots. Believe me, I know. But you can trust him. You can trust him to take care of the game and to win you the game. And I love Alex Smith. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks. I don't feel like he gets enough love because he's obviously the comeback player of the year. That thanks for coming, but he's the comeback player of the year. And the Washington team is not in that. They don't win that game without Alex Smith. If you put Haskins in there, Haskins would have thrown an interception to lose that game. You put anybody in there not named Alex Smith, and they lose that game.
No, yeah, and that's why I
I
said I'm glad it's your like for your best thing that you saw because it is one of the best things I saw because like you
mm-hmm.
he literally has a stump now for a leg, and I don't think I would
Yeah.
I watched the documentary and I was like, Alex, just cut the thing off. Like
Yeah.
like I don't know what you have to like. You don't have to prove anything. Just cut your
No.
leg off, man. Like I mean, he was in a like it was life and death, that injury, and I had never
Yeah.
like after watching that documentary, I'm like, man, you should have cut that. I would have cut that thing off. I've been like, nope.
Yeah.
I'm like, ain't worth it.
See ya.
I mean,
I'll
but that's
use crutches.
yeah, but that's the reason. Like you said, I mean, when he came back and he's playing at an NFL level, it's incredible. It really
Yeah.
is. I mean,
Yeah.
uh,
I was so mad when he got hurt. When he got hurt, and I was so mad. I was mad at that franchise because I was like, we traded him. That's our quarterback. From 2013 till 18, he was our quarterback. And a lot of Chiefs fans kind of hate him because he wasn't flashy. I loved him because of his consistency, and we hadn't had that in a long time before him. And so we trade Alex to the Redskins, like, hey, this is he'll help. And then they let my boy get hurt, and they let my boy get hurt like that, and I was furious with the Washington football team when that happened because he's such a great guy, and I wouldn't wish that kind of injury on anybody.
No,
And
good
for
grief,
him to
no,
come
man.
back from it, man, like that's just it's love of the game. And I'm so happy that he's in the position that he's in, that he's winning, he's playing, and I just that's my quarterback, man. I love Alex. Um, I can't say good things about him. I hope he can take Washington to the playoffs, and hope he can win that division because Lord knows it's still open. Um, with everybody just winning 4 games, but and I love Alex. And I just hope he keeps winning, and I hope he stays healthy, and he plays this game for as long as he wants because he freaking deserves it. So
Yeah.
that's my like, and I love it. That more than a like, man. That's my love for the week.
Yeah, no,
Love it.
it's like I said, it's a great storyline. If I had to have, if the Steelers had to have lost a game, um, I'm glad it was against
Mm-hmm.
them, and I'm, kind of, it's also an NFC team, so I mean,
Yeah.
there's, and plus, I was, I don't want them chasing a undefeated season like that. Usually, the only team
Mm-hmm.
that's ever worked out for my 72 Dolphins. And that's cool. Like you
Yeah.
can always have that. I'm fine with that. But usually for everyone else, it doesn't work out. So because you need to be reminded, is like week to week. It's not a guaranteed. It's not guaranteed. And all those Steeler players need to be reminded. So I mean, but losing to Alex Smith, I mean, yeah, it's a great story because everything he went through, and then he beat the undefeated team and the Steelers. And so yeah, it's a
Mm-hmm.
great story, and great for
Yeah.
him too. So, um,
Yep.
but yeah, really like the biggest matchups just briefly this week. I've been talking about it all show long. Is the Steelers Bills game to me,
Mm-hmm.
especially this week, for to see where everything's at. To me, it's the biggest game for both teams. Chiefs Dolphins also is going to be interesting to just see where the Dolphins are at. But yeah, and then for me on the college football side, once again, kind of a slow week. Georgia, Missouri, actually maybe a pretty interesting game.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of sad that we won't have an Ohio State Michigan game because of COVID,
Yeah.
and that always will go back for me. Like,
It wouldn't have been much of a game though.
yeah, but I think Ohio State needed a win on their record because it goes back, like I've been saying this whole year long about college football. It's like how can
Yeah.
you outrank a team that like Texas A&M? Texas A&M is in this
Mm.
position where they're saying we played more games and we just lost to the number one team. Can you keep
Yeah.
Texas A&M out? And I'd say no. I would put Texas A&M over Ohio State. Like, sorry you
Yeah.
started late, but just because you're Ohio State, yeah, no, and maybe people would be bad because they'd be like, well, they're an SEC. Well, still though, you have a team that's played more, and played more better
Yeah.
competition and lost to the number one team. So, anyways, Ohio State really needed to play that game. But they're not going to be able to,
Yeah.
and I don't know if they'll be able to. I don't think they're going to reschedule it. They're just done. So, which does go
Mm.
back to my point was maybe they shouldn't have LSU Alabama shouldn't have played. Uh,
Mm.
Wisconsin Iowa may be an interesting matchup. But
Mm.
that's what I saw. Any other matchups that I missed, Jamie?
I've got Colts Raiders. I think that's a good matchup. The Raiders have kind of been struggling. Last couple weeks, and so a lot of people still feel they're a playoff team. So I feel like the Colts and Raiders game because
Yeah,
the Colts
yeah,
lose, they're out. Raiders are in. Raiders lose. Colts stay where they're at, and so I think that's for playoff potential. That's a good matchup. And also, I like the Ravens Browns. I feel like that's the Browns put it on last Sunday, and so I really like to see where if they can continue doing that against the
yeah.
Ravens.
Yeah, after getting
And
Nick Chubb
then
back in their running game going, it's really been a
yeah,
huge difference for the
yeah.
Browns.
And then I've got number 17 North Carolina versus number 10 Miami. Good ACC matchup
Yeah.
there. And then I've got number 9 Georgia versus number 25 Mizzou as my games to check
Yeah,
out.
the
So
North Carolina Miami game is going to be a good one. Don't want to miss that one. That'll be a good
yeah,
game. Good game to tell where Miami's at, and maybe if they can still,
hmm
you know, vouch for a playoff spot. But I don't
yeah.
know. See if the but I don't know if anybody's getting
I don't
past
think they're there.
Clemson.
They're
So,
not there yet.
anyways, that is episode 31. As always, love to hear from all of you. Let us know what you're seeing.
Yes.
Give us some feedback. So, anyways, we hope you all have a good day, whether you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, or hearing this on Spotify, wherever you're listening to. Got a lot of spots this season for Pipkin and Turnbull. Catch us pretty much anywhere.
Yes.
So, no excuses.
Yep.
No excuses. So, anyways, we will see you guys next week.